What's up, family? And I'm back with another video. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day today. If you're new to this channel, go ahead, be sure to give this video a like. Go ahead, click the subscribe button, and if you haven't already, click the post notification bell so you will be updated when I drop a new broadcast. Also, stay tuned to this channel because my goal is to drop videos for y'all every single day to make sure that y'all stay informed and stay up to date on what's really going on. So without further ado, let's jump into today's topic. This broadcast is to show you how history repeats itself. And if you pay close attention to what's in this video, what's going on in the world today is just a continuation of history. About 100 years ago, the world was going through extreme changes. Strikes, riots, and fear was constantly spread throughout the country. Revolutionaries bombed Wall Street in New York, and in Seattle, workers were going on strike. During the year 1919, more than 20 series of violent black-white race-related incidents occurred. Check out the Omaha, Chicago, and Allegheny race riots.
African-American soldiers had returned home from the Great War, World War I, to a country still teeming with discrimination. And in their quest for civil rights, tensions between blacks and whites reached a tipping point. Deadly race riots broke out in over 24 cities, but one rural town, Elaine, Arkansas, would become the epicenter for the bloodshed. The violence there, lynch mobs, torture, indiscriminate murder, was so horrific it would go down in history not as a race riot, but as the Elaine Massacre.
Also, we cannot forget about the crazy pandemic in 1918, known as the Spanish flu. This deadly influenza pandemic, caused by H1N1 influenza virus, lasted from February 1918 to April 1920, and it infected about 500 million people, which is about a third of the world's population within the 2 years. So the statistics show that nearly 50 million people died during this time. So sit back and stay tuned and watch this short clip about the year 1919 and how it's in comparison to what's going on in the year 2020.
The flu began to spread at the end of World War I. The media in the countries that participated in the war were under military censorship, so they concealed the pandemic. However, Spain, being neutral, reported in the press on the new cases using names such as the fever of 3 days, the soldier of Naples, or the fashionable disease. It seemed that Spain was the only country affected. This is why the disease was known all over the world as the Spanish flu. Although by the fall of 1917, the disease had already occurred in 14 military camps, some consider Gilbert Mitchell, a cook at Fort Riley Camp in Kansas, to be a zero patient. Mitchell entered the morning of March 4, 1918, with fever and headache to the infirmary, and a few hours later, there were more than 100 cases under treatment. So they'd set up a hangar to care for patients. The symptoms of this disease were high fever, earache, body fatigue, diarrhea, and occasional vomiting, and sometimes breathing difficulties and nosebleeds. Most of the people who died were the result of secondary bacterial pneumonia, as antibiotics were not available. However, one group died quickly after the first symptoms appeared in as little as 2 or 3 days. By mid-April 1918, the flu was already raging in the trenches of Western Europe. He passed from France to Great Britain, Italy, and came to Spain. Even King Alfonso XIII became ill, and the Spanish newspapers echoed the disease, which was spreading so alarmingly. As can be seen in this graph, most fatalities fell in just 13 weeks, from September to mid-December 1918, in what's known as the second wave. The poorest people and populations suffered the consequences of this flu in a special way. But it also affected governors, such as the President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, the British Prime Minister Lloyd George, or Kaiser Guillermo, The painter Edvard Munch even captured it in a self-portrait, and others like Gustav Klimt did not survive the disease. All the newspapers of the moment collected advertisements with miraculous remedies. The elixirs, medicinal waters, tonics, and other remedies stand out. Doctors at the time recommended aspirin in doses now considered counterproductive, quinine prepared with arsenic, camphor oil, or castor oil. Some even encouraged people to smoke, thinking that inhaling smoke killed germs. Different medical publications of the time, available in the Hispanic Digital Library, attempted to respond to the causes of the epidemic and reported on its progress and consequences. An Italian scientist, Professor Sacconi, claimed to have isolated the germ that caused the disease, but time proved it was not true. The strain of the virus causing Spanish flu, AH1N1, was not discovered until 1943, and its genetic sequence was not determined until 2005. Every day, Spanish newspapers picked up on the importance of hygiene education and how this task was carried out in Germany from schools and pupils, making the number of flu deaths before the war the lowest in all of Europe. They also warn that patients who do not experience any symptoms, the so-called convalescents, can be a focus of spread of the epidemic, so they recommended keeping them 1 or 2 weeks more in isolation. The use of cloth masks became mandatory for all those performing public service work. This measure was a health recommendation made to the rest of the population to prevent the disease from spreading so easily. The more contact there was between people, the more likely they were to reproduce the virus. The government is beginning to take preventative measures to try and stop this crisis. Theaters, circuses, workshops, factories, and public places are disinfected, and some events are even suspended. It's forbidden to import goods from Morocco. Strangers entering populations are identified. Tuition and examinations are extended indefinitely, and rectors are even given the freedom to suspend classes if they see fit. The third and last wave was more benign, as many people were already immunized, giving the pandemic under control in the spring of 1919. And the disease ended on its own. By the summer of 1920, the virus had disappeared. While he won the battle against the weakest, the rest were immunized.
Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. This was going on in the year 1919. And so with it being 2020, which is 100 years into the future, we're repeating history with what is called the C virus. And you already know what that is. COVID-19. Isn't that ironic? Not only that, but even with the riots, with the media, and how it's starting the race wars slowly. I challenge everybody to just do their own research so they can find out what's really going on. Because 100 years ago, what we're experiencing is just a recap of what has happened. So, with that being said, I thank everybody for watching this video, and be sure to leave a like, subscribe to this channel, and also stay tuned because I will be dropping another video tomorrow. And so with that being said, I hope everybody have a great rest of the day, and peace.